Okay, Mindy Davey, I am so excited to have you here. This is an absolute honor. I have been following you for quite a few years now, quite honestly. And we have a mutual friend who happens to be your manager. And so we will talk about that in a little bit. But for the listeners hopping on, we have a pop artist in the studio. I've been watching your journey for a while. We've actually been connecting, and your story is incredible. And part of your story really relates to mine. But I have just been watching this person evolve and grow and grow and grow, and it's like you're really ready for the big time. And I think you have an album coming out too, so we'll talk about that too. But first, I want to know all about you. I want to, for the listeners, for everybody tuning into this, watching this, say hello and give us a little bit of the background. I mean, I was reading your bio. You've been on America's Got Talent, if I'm correct. You know, I recognized you from that too. So when you were kind of in this transition is when I got to know you. Let's talk about before that though. So Mindy, before that, where are you from? And just let's dish it. Let's dish the tea and go into it.
All right. Well, what's up, guys? My name is Mindy Davey, and I'm a recording artist from Buffalo, New York. And before I got into music, really honestly, I was just a carefree kid, and my mom was going through a lot of health problems, and she was in and out of the hospital, and they weren't really sure what was going on with her. But in the process, I was transitioning. Meanwhile, all this was going on, I was transitioning into freshman year of high school, and that was hard for me. I think I became like the target of kids because I was a little bigger, when I was a kid. And that kind of led to a lot of issues, and my mom not being there and in the hospital, I wasn't really able to rely on her as much as I used to. So between all of that, I remember in my freshman year, I was invited to a party, and I went, thinking maybe that was my opportunity to fit in, and when I went to the party, I ended up getting introduced to Oxycontin and to alcohol, and kind of just the mix of everything, especially the Oxy, just became my escape from the bullying and from my mom being in the hospital. And that led to a crazy path for me. I was addicted for like 5 years throughout my high school, and I dropped out. I didn't complete my high school. About a year, I'd say, after I dropped out, I continued to use, and I was arrested actually my second time. And that time the judge threw the book at me and was like, we need to send you to rehab. We need to get you some help. And so I went, and I'm telling you, destiny and God has its way of working its way out, because a week into rehab, I found out I was pregnant. And when that kind of hit me, I realized that I needed to not only straighten my own life out, but I have somebody else that is inside of me now that I really have to care for now too. So I believe my daughter was a blessing. I graduated my 6-month treatment, and I went on to have my daughter, Ariana. And, I basically just took that route of sobriety and was really embarking down motherhood and being a fresh mom and fresh out of rehab. And it was a crazy path for me. I was getting introduced to new things, but music is what really, after I got out of rehab and had my daughter, music really connected with me again. And that's when I started writing about all of my problems and my issues and things that I've been through. And America's Got Talent, actually, I decided to go to New York and audition for the show the first time. And when I was there, I wrote my first song, Peace, about a homeless man that I came across. And I didn't make the show that time, but I actually am glad I went to New York, because I wrote that song, which ended up being the first song I released. I started going online and streaming and playing the song, and people were like, you are amazing. And that's when I really found my purpose and was like, you know what, music is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And not only that, but being just a speaker and being able to talk to other people about what I've gone through. I feel like that's where I found my purpose. So I really just started performing and just not giving up in my music aspect. A couple years after I auditioned for the show the first time, Mike Letica, actually my manager, saw me playing on Periscope the one day, and it's an app. They unfortunately closed down this month, but I grew like 20,000 fans on there, and Mike ended up calling me out, and he's like, hey, you know, your story's incredible. Let's bring you out to Duluth, Minnesota, and let's have you do some speaking out here. So we did like a week-long tour out in Duluth. We were doing public speaking at schools, detention centers, rehab centers, and just basically that's what I focused on for the next 2 years, was just public speaking. And me and Mike were just talking back and forth and really trying to come up with a plan to help as many people. I think the drug addiction rate has increased, especially now, and I feel like if I can get myself and my story out there and inspire and help other people, I'm doing my job, you know. So that's kind of like where we are now. Things, I mean, I could still go on and on and on about like the past year especially, but you know, before really all the success, that's really where I discovered my purpose, was just public speaking and being me.
Mhm. So it's really interesting, your story, because, you know, you started out, and it always starts out with that one little catalyst, you know, and, you know, mom got sick, you know, things were happening there, go to parties. And, you know, it's so easy to have this happen. And it happens, you know, I was a partier. I was a drinker, you know, but my daughter, very easily, we've shared her story several times. I mean, she got into the same type of deal. And it's just so easy when there's this thing going on at home and a struggle to kind of find your place. You know, you said you might have a little bit of bullying in there. There was like all these small factors that kind of lead up to this. And now you are an advocate, which is when you came into a little bit of my world with Mike. That's how I did know you. Mike had pulled you into our small city, and you did the tour. And I just remember at the time I had been privately struggling with drinking, and I was, you know, not ready to say, oh yeah, I have a problem, but I definitely was one of those people who are like, I'd love to hear that story, because you were, you know, a young woman who went through all this. I mean, you said you went to jail, you found out you were pregnant in jail, is that correct? And then yeah, I mean, and think about that. Like there's a path here where you could have went a totally different way. You could have stayed in the system. You could have said, screw it. And you've completely turned it around. I mean, your story is the story people want to hear. So before you got into the America's Got Talent, when you started in music, were you just doing it as a hobby? Or were you like, maybe I want to do something? What was that moment where you're like, I want to sing? Or was that something always kind of in the background? Like, let's talk about that, because I think that's really interesting. Like, you know, you get right to here and then you're in America's Got Talent. What's the little void between? Because there are a lot of people who are artists who don't know how to even get started.
Yep.
And you've done an incredible job. So tell me about that a little bit.
I think, to be honest, a couple things went into that. My family was always really big. Like my grandma was always in the choir, and so was my mom. So I'd always be around on Friday nights and Saturday nights. My grandma would come over and they would be jamming out on the guitar, you know. So I was always grown up around music, which was something that was always a part of me. I just feel like over time when I became addicted, it just kind of got lost. It wasn't my importance anymore. And I feel like when I got sober, it became a huge part of my life, and it saved my life in a sense. And I have to give a big shout out to Robbie Takic from the Goo Goo Dolls, because he owns a studio out here called GCR Audio. And when I was lost, like I didn't, like you said, some artists don't know where to go with how to record. Right. And I just contacted him, and he really brought me under his wing, and just we went into the studio, and he hooked me up with an amazing engineer. And his name is Brad, and you know, me and Brad just kind of went in, and I was like a baby in the studio trying to figure out what my voice was. But I think that's what I really did. I went for it. I just knew that music was something special to me, and I just went for it, hit the studio, and kind of got that vibe to see what it was all about, you know. And that's when I realized that this was my path. This was what I was supposed to do.
And how did you get connected with him? Did you just reach out to him, or how was that connection happening?
Robbie's a huge in Buffalo, New York. He's very a huge advocate, I think, for kids, music especially. And I feel like A lot of people here in Buffalo know him. So I just reached out, and that's how down to earth he is he immediately responded back. And, I look up to him as an advocate and somebody I look up to in the industry. And yeah, it's super amazing how that played out and worked.
That's incredible. I think it's important for people to know, like, you have to have a little bit of lady balls when it comes to what you want, right? Like,
Yep.
not everybody, like, okay, so what I sometimes when we want something but we don't know what to do, a lot of us would be like, oh, that'd be great to work with that person. They're too busy. I would never even reach out, right? I think it's important for people to know is to go after it and not be afraid. What do you got to lose, right? I think what separates you, and even right now as we're talking, and obviously I've known you a little bit, but even in this interview, you kind of just go for it. Like, I don't hear hesitation or like, oh, I tried this and I want to do this. It's not even that you tried, you just did it.
Yeah.
That's really important to hear, because when you're looking at people who they're good and then you got great, that's the difference right there. Good will always do what they should do and kind of stay on the path. When you separate, how do you separate from somebody who just wants to sing and is found on Periscope to somebody who is going to sing and is going to the next level? And I think that's the difference. I think there's a difference there. So you reach out to this incredible artist he is incredible and well known in the industry. I mean, obviously, super talented. I love what he does for children. That sounds incredible too. So he connects you and you get started. What was it like going from where you were to right there? So now you're full blown. I mean, seriously, even if you're not quite yet to where you want to be, I think you're doing incredible. But let's talk about that middle stage. So now you're a recording artist.
Yep.
What is that like? Now, here's the other flip. In that world, it can be very tough to have any addictions or battled in the past even. And obviously there's many created in that industry. So what has been, when you jumped in full force, what were the challenges at first? And it doesn't have to be with addiction, because you're in recovery, you're great. I understand that too. In my industry, very fast paced sales, it also breeds the same thing. But what was going through your mind when you first jumped in? What were the challenges? And then what were the surprises, the good surprises that you found in that?
So I think the challenges were definitely trying to make sure that I'm being myself and not getting lost in that crazy world. Because what I've noticed is in the industry, it's not about what you want. It is about, in a sense, it's about, like, for instance, if you're told to go to point A and you got to be at point B, you have to listen to your boss, obviously, but you also got to make sure you find that balance between listening to your boss, but also being yourself and not being someone that they want you to be. So I felt like that was a huge hard balance for me to get, was trying to understand that whole entire balance. But I actually, for the first time in the past couple of months, if a lot of you guys have been following me, is past couple of months, I've really been finding my voice. And I feel like for the first time ever, I've finally found mentally my sexuality, who I am as a person. I feel like I finally found that, and I'm proud to be who I am. And I feel like I just called Mike last week and I was like, you know what, for the first time, I feel like I'm controlling myself. Nobody's controlling me. I'm controlling every move that I make. And I feel like that was the most challenging part, especially because I wasn't able to heal really necessarily 100% throughout my addiction. And so I had to understand that other balance too of healing and trying to work through those triggers and the balances that I was facing. So that was a cool thing, but I think, or that was a hard thing, but I think the cool thing about it is that I discovered who I am as a person in the end. Through all of those tribulations, I really found me. And that's what I think is the most important thing, so.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I love that, because, okay, so you're in an industry majority run by very, very, very powerful men, right? And to be a young, beautiful, talented woman always will have its challenges. And helping women find their voice is a thing for me, but it sounds like you are as well, because this is part of your story that has just started blossoming. And I think it's really important today to understand that I feel like this is going to be a big part of your story, because you do have yourself now. Women go through this in business, women go through this in huge successful careers, how to be yourself in that world, because you're getting pulled in a lot of directions. People want you to dress a certain way, look a certain way, talk a certain way. And I remember I went through a stage like that where I thought I had to be a certain way, and I lost myself. And then I was flailing. And when you get to the point where you're grounded, and when you're like, no, this is who I am. I think I watched a documentary. I think Lady Gaga did one. It was a good one. I think it's 5 foot something, and she talked about that, and just being this little lady and these big around these big business guys. I mean, and it's a wild life in some of these environments. And I think it's really important when you can stay grounded, but you have to know who you are. And it's so important that you do. Yep. And at a young age, I mean, it's not, you haven't been in the industry for 30 years, you are fresh, and it's important that you're already this grounded, because you see a lot of artists that come in because they have the talent, they get thrown in. They don't really have that life story in the background. They kind of just were like, woo, I was a good singer. I had a lot of talent. And they're able to be molded, and I don't think it's always in a healthy way. And that's why you see these artists who are maybe young child artists, you see them crumble. Yep. You see those, I think of Justin Bieber. I think of a lot of them, amazing talents that just got pushed to the limit, did not who they were yet because they were children. And then it's like picking the pieces back up, and watching them do that. So I think that's incredible. And I think a voice for women in this industry is huge. And as a young woman, I'm not knocking any of the artists, because there are so many powerhouse women in the industry, but I have to say it's still dominated by the men. It's something that we will have to overcome, but that's how you empower women and give them voices. And you are one of those voices who will be leading the charge. And because you're so grounded, and because you know yourself, and you've had these experiences, you're ahead of the game, which is incredible. And that's why I think your journey is going to be so much different than some of the other journeys. But I'm definitely excited for it. Okay, so you found your voice. I've been watching you. You're doing some work. Okay, what's happening right now? Because I've been watching your journey. It's been fun. So I kind of secretly stalk you. You've been on a fitness journey. Okay, tell us about your fitness journey. I love health and fitness. I've had my journeys, ups, downs, and all arounds. But when you're in the spotlight, also when you're busy, it's hard to keep up. So talk to us about kind of where you're at with, what did you want to do? What are your goals? Like fitness, health-wise, where are you at right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that had a huge part of my confidence. I think, because I was accepted, I'm not going to say names, but I was accepted to do a huge show at New York State Fairgrounds. And I was going to open for a really awesome artist. I was super stoked about it. But then they saw a full-blown body picture of me. And they totally told me that I was too big for the part. Like that was the reason why they accept me. So I had to really kind of go through a mental phase where I'm am I good enough? Right. And I had to find myself, like I said. And now, so I was like, you know what? I'm so ready to, instead of being so hard on myself, I want to embrace this journey, and I want to work on myself, not just sit here and wonder what I could do and not make those moves. So I called Mike up, and Mike hooked me up with an amazing nutrition called Cara Matrella Fitness and Nutrition. And so I've been working with her for, about 2 months now. And I'm literally seeing these changes, but not only that, but the way I'm eating, I used to get so sick to my stomach on some days, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I ended up stopped taking 5-hour energy. That was just totally gone. I replaced it with just healthier stuff, fruits and stuff. And I feel so much amazing. I feel amazing. I feel healthy. And I'm really just embracing this change, this journey, body and, mind-wise. Both.
Look incredible. And you know what, that could break somebody. I'll be honest with you, told You don't have a look. It doesn't matter. I've seen some of the most beautiful women in the world that, I mean, you'd kill for, that are self-conscious, that are insecure because of these types of things. People told them one time that they were a little overweight, or and I don't love that. I mean, I don't think it should be about our bodies, but let's be real, it's petty. The world is like that. And you know, I've had people tell me at times, I've had it said to me, and it can really screw you up. You can go into a spiral. So I'm proud of you for not. But also, you know, if you have a message for anyone that is trying to be somebody in the public eye, when you went through that, what would be, I think, your best advice for a young woman who maybe is struggling with things? Maybe she needs to get healthy, and, you know, but also, I've never been a person to be like, you got to go lose weight. I think there's a very, very big balance there, and it's a fine line, because, I mean, we look at some artists like Lizzo, who absolutely embraces her weight, and that's her thing. I don't advocate being unhealthy if somebody's unhealthy, but also I think it's okay to be a curvier version of yourself and not stress out. Again, though, if somebody tells you you're legit not going to be on the stage because of that, talk to, you handled it well, but talk to somebody maybe on some advice that you'd give them, so they don't do things that are extreme
Yeah.
and hurt themselves.
I think when I did take that news, it hit me hard. And I think it took a good year to get out of that funk. And I feel like I was second guessing myself a lot and trying to figure out, you know, is this the path for me? Is this the career for me? Like, am I ever going to be accepted? But I feel like once you stop questioning yourself and you stop, you know, worrying about what Jack and California thinks, you know, start worrying about what your goals are, you know, and what you think of yourself. Because most importantly, it's not what everybody else out there thinks of you, right? I think the most important thing to me is what you think of yourself. That's most important. Do you wake up in the morning and say, I love myself today, I look good today? You know, that's what I feel like a lot of women need to start doing. They need to wake up, they need to embrace themselves, look in the mirror. And if you have goals, maybe you don't like where your body's at, you know, like that's how I was. I wasn't happy with where my body was. But instead of going down a negative path of dealing with it, I decided, you know what? Let's get a trainer. Let's start making small moves and seeing what happens. And I started seeing the change, the gradual change from size pants 12 to size 10 in a couple weeks even, you know. So it's just you embrace those changes and just make sure at the end of the day you love yourself and who you're becoming, or who you want to be, you know, or who you are, you know, maybe. So it's, yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
Exactly. I think it's important. And if you're rooted in faith, if you're rooted, you know, do you have a higher power? I always say, believe in the universe, a higher power, God, whatever it is, but you got to be rooted in something and have your belief in that. Your belief systems need to be strong, because it's easy to sway. It's easy to get caught up. Self-worth is big for me. You know, I think self-worth can go away very quickly with pressures, with, you know, if and now we don't have to tell people to drink, not to drink, but if you drink, if you numb anything, it's so easy to get trapped in the self-worth cycle. Like, oh, I feel like crap, I'm gonna go numb it, or I'm gonna do this, whatever it is. And then you're kind of in this cycle, and this is where your self-worth goes. And then all of a sudden you're pinning your self-worth to other people's opinions.
Yep.
And that is where, as a woman, I've done it. As a woman, I've had people have broken me on their opinions, and not about my physical appearance, about me in general. And it's like, if you are not strong in yourself, and not just knowing who you are, that's a big deal. But if you're not rooted in yourself when it comes to being clear with your goals, being clear with your vision. So we're having a little business talk here, but you have clearly had a straight path. You know where you're going. You are driven. Business women, entrepreneurs on this watching, you've done some pretty incredible things in a short amount of time. What would you say has kept you focused? What is your why? I guess your why, or what is your ultimate goal? When you look, this is why I'm doing XYZ. What would you say got you through all this?
I would say the fans, the supporters, because at the end of the day, I receive hundreds of messages. Thank you for sharing your story. You know, today I decided to go to rehab. You know, there's so many different things and messages that I get that I feel like is really the motivation that I get, because I know I'm hitting people. I know that I'm really reaching people and changing people. So I feel like that was a huge thing that got me through this, and the real reason why I do this. I just recently started. It goes back to, you know, the men and people in the industry. Is I was so tired of people filming my music videos, and I decided to invest in my own music, my own video equipment, and so now I do my own videos. So I think that's another why for me, is just independently, I'm starting to see that you can do anything you put your mind to. I didn't go to school for videography or editing or anything like that, but I took courses for hours and hours on my computer at home, and I decided to learn how to do videography. So it's there's multiple reasons on why I do this, but I feel like I'm, at the end of the day, an entrepreneur myself, and I feel like I can do anything I put my mind to. So anyone out there. So that's another reason why I do it, you know, is because I'm much, you know, and I'm impacting people in the process. So it's the best of both worlds.
It is. Well,
Yeah.
you're extremely talented. I mean, think about the things you've overcome, you've done, you learn videography. I love that. You know, we live in a time with okay, so the other thing is the last year was an opportunity. And a lot of people took it, and a lot of people did not take it. And I think that's really interesting, because you could have sat down and looked at all the negativity, could have sat and watched it, could have done nothing with it. And then there's people like you who sat down and learned videography, right? And, you know, like I started learning French last year. I'm not saying I'm good at it. I understand. But I mean, I did. I got Duolingo. I got that little owl app, and I'm like, I'm doing Duolingo every day. And I do it every day. But here's the thing. We can either take like when the rugs pulled out, when things like that happen, this is, you know, this was a global thing, but this happens in life all the time. You're going to have a fork in the road. You're going to have things not go your way. How you handle that, how you adapt and overcome in those situations is defining. And you have a common theme with you, Mindy Davey, is that when life throws something at you, you create something beautiful with it. Constantly. You created a beautiful child. You grew out of that. You learned and got your music out there. You reached out, you collaborated, you were not afraid, you did it. You advocated not only for recovery and addiction, you shared your story, but you're advocating for women now, and you are inspiring to kids all over. And, you know, you're up and coming artist. You are doing all these incredible things. What is next for you? You've got some projects coming, and you have an album coming out. Let's talk about the future here and what's going to be, you know, coming out in the next few months.
Yeah, I'm working on an album called Destiny, which I felt was a fitting title, because I felt like everything the past 2 years have really honestly been meant to be. Even just the past 10, you know, coming out of my addiction, having my daughter, you know, just really was destiny for me. And so that's my title of my album. So I've really been working on completing those songs, and I can't announce fully yet, but I did announce on my Facebook, I'm working with an incredible woman in the industry who is affiliated with so many people like Justin Bieber, Usher. And so we're planning on going to Atlanta, Georgia pretty soon, you know, so we're kind of just waiting for that phone call, you know. So besides that, I have a clothing brand. I make my own clothes. So I've been really kind of just making new merchandise and just gearing up to head to Atlanta as soon as I get that call. So,
wow. Wow, that is incredible. And so how old is your daughter now?
She's 8. Yeah.
So you're also a mama. I think we're talking about all these things. It's like, and mom.
Right.
Let's talk about the most important thing. The most important thing is mom. So, okay, this is kind of my last wrap up with you. How has it been raising a child in this industry, a very young child, and kind of going up into this industry with her?
It's been a lot. She's a special needs kid. So she has been delayed since the age of 1. She really hasn't talked much. And around 1 or 2 is when we noticed that she had a lot of delays. So she's been in a program where she receives all of her therapies, speech therapy, physical therapy. So it's a lot at times, because I have my job, but I also have my job as a mom during the day. So it could be a lot. When I'm on tour, she's always with me, so that's something that I love to do, to have her there, So it's it's a lot. It's a lot to handle, but I think at the end of the day, that's what makes me so strong, is because I have so much on my plate at once. And Ariana is just teaching me how to be a better person at the end of the day, and she's teaching me so much that it's just a blessing. It's a blessing. She saved my life. And that's another thing too, is, I just had a talk with someone the other day where if I do have triggers, I think of her, and at the end of the day, I know that if I do have a trigger, it could potentially lead to her not having a mom. And that's the most important thing for me, is I'm there for her. I'm strong. She knows that I'm a strong person, because I want her in the end of the day to be a strong woman, So yeah, it's a blessing. It's a lot. It's a blessing. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
She's your why. There's
Yeah,
your why right
exactly.
there. We just got it out of you. There's your why. You know what? It's incredible. Do you get help with her? Do you have someone that's with you, or have any helpers with you?
My mom is an absolute blessing. She's the best grandma I could ever ask for, and my daughter loves her. So she comes on tour with me. My mom comes on tour with me, and so she basically hangs out with my mom if I'm at a show, and they're backstage with me all the time. So it's just really cool to have that support and be able to travel and do what I do, but be able to also be a mom and have her there for those moments, it's a blessing.
I love that. And so you've been on tour. Okay, I don't get super starstruck, but there's certain people if I met, I'd be like, oh my God. Who is the most famous person that you've been like, oh my gosh, I just met this person?
Oh man, I would have to say Wes Gear. So there's a guy named Wes Gear. He's from Korn. He's an ex-band from Korn. And I flew out to Laguna Beach, California, and I was on his show, Rock to Recovery. And I was speaking about my addiction. And I told Mike, I'm like, I normally don't get starstruck because I met like Robbie at the studio and stuff, and I hung out with him. But for some reason, I was like shaking. When I was taking a photo with him, I was like, what is going on with me right now? So I think that was the first time I got starstruck with someone, which was cool. It was cool.
It is cool. It's so fun. I have my list. This is a goofy list, but I always wanted to marry Sean Connery. And he passed away recently, and I was devastated because I'm like, no, I lost him. But no, I love these. I have these older men that I was always starstruck by, like the older Hollywood men. Not that he was old Hollywood, but definitely older. And then Harrison Ford, if he's watching, I'd still marry you. Yeah. I know he's with somebody. No, I'm teasing, but I have these old childhood crushes that will always stay with me. Like, I love those guys. And so it's so funny because when I don't know if I could see somebody, maybe Leonardo DiCaprio would make me a little nervous because I've always liked him too. But, I just have a few people. But yeah, I'm kind of like you. I don't get super crazy around people, but I like that. I love that you were on that show, and I actually think I saw a clip of it, and it was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, you've been all over the place, girl. I just love it. I'm so glad you came on here, and we appreciate you. Okay, so before we go, tell everyone who's listening, watching, how can they find you if they want to find you right now? And we're going to show everything too. Don't worry, we'll get all your information up. But just if they want to know right now, how can they find Mindy?
Yeah, if you guys want to check out my website, it's www.mindydavey.com. Or you could find me on all social platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Facebook, pretty much on every social. I'm all over. So it's always at Mindy Davey, MindyDavey.
That's awesome. And I'm going to continue to support and follow you as usual. I love it. You've inspired me
Thank you.
since I've got to know you. Thank you for Mike. We love Mike.
Yeah.
He's a great connector of many. He's just an incredible man. You are lucky to have him as a manager. I mean, just one of my favorite people that I know in my life, and definitely a good soul. So excited for you. We are going to be cheering you on. I can't wait for that album to drop.